Now that you have finished reading The Dream House, we need to explore it in more depth. One of the first questions we need to answer is this novel a typical Plaasroman? Before we answer the question, we need to ensure that we understand what a Plaasroman is. It's an Afrikaans word that means farm novel if directly translated. Traditionally, the South African Plaasroman tells a story which is set on a farm, obviously, and explores the farmer's relationship with the world around him. The world in a Plaasroman is usually idyllic. The farmer is male and the head of a patriarchal society on the farm. Black characters are marginalized, peripheral to the main action. The storyline is often nostalgic. Characters express regret that the world that they have known is changing. This notion of a Plaasroman is propounded by renowned South African author J.M. Coetzee. Many years ago, his novel Disgrace was studied by IEB matrics. Like The Dream House, it's a grim story set in rural South Africa, and it also uses dogs as a symbol. Coetzee defined the setting of a Plaasroman as a separate kingdom ruled over by a benign patriarch, with beneath him a pyramid of contented and industrious children, grandchildren, and serfs. Taking Coetzee's thoughts into account, it is obvious that the dream house is not a traditional Plaasroman. The family hierarchy on Dwaleni is matriarchal. It is Patricia who inherited the farm from her parents and who was the more successful farmer. There are no children from their marriage, so there is no family dynasty to retain ownership of the land. The farm itself is unsuccessful, and we, the readers, are introduced to Dwaleni as its purpose, its function is being changed. It's changing from food production to a residential development. Higginson himself says that The Dream House is an anti-farm novel. He deliberately challenges the ideal of pastoral serenity that most of us city folk assume is the norm on farms. Higginson wants his readers to think of the complexities surrounding farms and land ownership in post-apartheid South Africa. And he requires us to consider the impact that this idealized lifestyle has on the other farm residents, the beauties, the Beckies, the look smarts of the world. To summarize then, a Plaasroman portrays an idyllic landscape with conservative and retrospective plot lines that represent the uniquely Afrikaner rural identity. The Dream House is not a Plaasroman because it challenges the tenets of these novels. Dwaleni is not a successful farm. It's run by an Englishwoman. The plot exposes the racist and sexist bedrock on which Plaasromans are built. I am sure that many of you have asked why the IEB selected The Dream House as a novel option. I hope that this slide offers some explanation. We are living in a rapidly changing country. As Higginson says, this new South Africa is still in the making. Each of us must have our own vision of what a changed, settled South Africa looks like. One thing is certain, we cannot remain in the past. The middle picture on this slide is a painting by Maggie Loubser, one of the most famous artists from South Africa. She was born on a Western Cape farm, a wheat farm, in 1886. Her art captures the idyllic pastoral world of her youth. The photograph on the right shows a new housing development built on farmland in KwaZulu-Natal. This type of change is uncomfortable, but it's also inevitable. For those of you who have the opportunity, I encourage you to visit the National English Literature Museum in Makhanda, formerly Grahamstown. There is a superb permanent exhibition on the portrayal of farms in South African fiction. If you pause the video here, you will be able to read some of the information on display at the museum. Under the heading Revisiting the Farm Novel, you will read the following. Farm novels have returned to prominence since the 1970s and engage with issues of cultural identity, land and its expropriation, and the resettlement of people in South Africa. This display references novels by Karel Schoeman, Nadine Gordimer, and of course, J.M. Coetzee. In a previous lesson on the Dream House, I directed you to the poem My Name. I would like you to explore other contemporary South African poets in your preparation for both Paper 1 and Paper 2 of your final exams. I took this photograph at the National English Literature Museum. It showcases, literally, a 2007 poem by Lebogang Mashile. Like Higginson's writing, Mashile's poetry demonstrates how post-transitional South African literature has found space in which to return to the personal, rather than feeling obligated to perform social commentary. My world is in Mama's hands is beautiful. How do you think it connects to the Dream House? One of the poems that you have to study this year is Olive Schreiner's The Cry of South Africa. It's worth noting that Schreiner's The Story of an African Farm falls under the Plaasroman label. On the left of the screen is an extract from a biography of Olive Schreiner. You will note her response to the death of her younger sister. On the right is a photograph which shows the sarcophagus on Buffelskop in which Olive Schreiner is buried. She's buried with her husband, their unnamed daughter who died in infancy, and their dog, Nkita. The links to the Dream House should be obvious too. If you are interested in exploring the concept of a Plaasroman, I recommend that you look for this article online. The citation is at the bottom of the slide, hopefully making it easier for you to find. Don't be put off by the age of the article. It was published in 1986, the year I got married. The reflection is both interesting and current. For those of you for whom English literature is your thing, I encourage you to read even more widely. This dissertation by Stuart Thomas as part of his master's degree is fascinating. It references more modern South African fiction writing. The hope, the wish of the designers of your English curriculum is that your school literary studies will prompt you to read other African and South African writers. On the next slides, I would like to point you in the direction of some other local novels that use a farm or rural setting. Remember that one of your oral requirements is that you have read 7 books of your own choosing. The books that I show you on the following slides are the kinds of books that we'd love you to read by choice. By matric, you should have progressed beyond the Spud series, Harry Potter and The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. First up is The Devil's Chimney, set in Oudtshoorn. The main character, Connie, follows the stories of 2 women, a young girl who vanished in the Kango caves and an Englishwoman who tried to farm ostriches at the turn of the previous century. Connie is forced to confront the truths of her own past. Sound familiar? The author of The Devil's Chimney is Anne Landsman. She's originally from Worcester in the Western Cape. Read the highlighted section on this slide, in which she recounts her experiences as a white, English-speaking Jewish schoolgirl in an Afrikaner-dominated town during apartheid. The second novel is Eben Venter's Trencherman. It's set in a dystopian future. The protagonist moved away from South Africa to Australia. After 20 years, he returns to the land of his birth and has to face the demons of his past, including the reasons for rejecting the family farm on which he was raised. The author of Trencherman, Eben Venter, is a farmer's son. For my own students, you'll be pleased to note that he matriculated in Bloemfontein, our nearest city. The third novel is The Imposter. It has been called an anti-pastoral post-apartheid novel, which can be said of The Dream House too. Damon Galgut is one of South Africa's most prominent authors. Although a Pretoria boy, he is able to capture accurately the complexities of South Africa's farming communities and conundrums. The fourth novel is David's Story. The main character embarks on a journey to discover the truths of his own life as an anti-apartheid activist. His journey causes him to reflect on what a non-racial democracy actually means. Zoe Wickham is the Namaqualand-born author of David's Story. She has had a glittering academic career. If you don't know about her or her works, you should. She has so much to say to us as we navigate this new Mzansi of ours. I have saved what I think is the best of these 5 novels for last. Marlene van Niekerk's AGAAT was written in Afrikaans. It has been translated into English and published sometimes as The Way of the Women. The novel is about the relationship between an Afrikaner farmer woman, Milla, and her black servant, AGAAT. AGAAT is, as you know, the Afrikaans word for agate, a beautiful crystal, semi-precious stone. Milla is nearing the end of her life. She's grappling with the changes in post-apartheid South Africa and relies on AGAAT to process the memories, the truths of her past. An Afrikaans version of Patricia and Beauty, perhaps? Read the novel and compare the relationships. Marlene van Niekerk's work is important, as well as being good reading. I challenge you to broaden your reading habits. Make time to read books that shake you out of your comfort zone. In case you think this genre of writing is depressing, I leave you with this quote by Craig Higginson. We shouldn't fixate on the burden of the past, but we need to carry on carrying it, because if we deny it or hide from it, it will only come back to haunt us. The past is part of who we are. We ignore it at our peril. Thank you for joining me for this lesson on The Dream House. I wish you well as you dig deeper into this novel and prepare for your examinations. You're welcome to ask me questions on the pre-arranged platforms available to you. Stay well, everyone.